Hey guys. I cut my hair, and this is my second time filming this intro because I got too weirded out by it the first time. So yeah, cut my hair. I've been dealing with a little bit of an anxiety moment, and we are seeking help. We are upping our medication, and we are doing the best we can. So that's the update. Let's talk about the mid-year book freakout tag. This is my favorite tag. It's like the only tag that I actually participate in. I had a booktube channel way back in 2018. All of those videos have been privated, but I did do the mid-year book freakout tag way back when. The mid-year book freakout tag is one of my favorites to watch just because I feel like you get an overall look at everyone's tastes and just how their reading year has gone so far. I've read 17 books this year, which may not seem like a lot to a very average booktuber, but it might seem like a lot of books to just an average viewer. But it's a good amount for me, dealing with a toddler and really not having a ton of time to read. I feel like I'm doing a really good job at being on track with my goal, which was 25 books. That to me is pretty feasible with being a mom, so I am proud of myself. The best book you've read so far this year, to me, this is double-sided. I'm gonna say best book so far this year and favorite book so far this year because I do think that those are two different questions. So the best book that I've read so far this year is Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. This is a memoir about Jesmyn Ward growing up in poverty in Mississippi. She talks about specifically how poverty where she grew up affected the men in her life. And she focuses on 5 men who had some role in her life and passed away through various things: drugs, suicide, alcohol, just freak accidents. And each death, she kind of talks about how poverty and what they were born into not only shaped those men, but shaped everyone around them. She has a lot to say about the human condition and just how economic struggles and racism and all the things that a Black man can experience, but especially a Black man in poverty, how it shapes themselves, how it shapes the women in their lives. And there are some really deep, hard discussions in this memoir. I would say check out the trigger warnings because it is pretty dark and there are certain things that have stuck with me. And I read this book, I think in January of this year, and it's still on my mind constantly. It's hauntingly beautiful. It's sad. It has a lot to say. And honestly, I think it's very informative. And I really liked what she had to say about being the first person in her family to pursue higher education and go to college, and what that looked like, being the first one, how she was treated for that. And I don't know, there's a lot to unpack in it, but I think that it's really, really well done. It was my first read from this author, and now she's become a new favorite. Now, if we're talking about my favorite book of this year, it has to be Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is my favorite so far this year. This book just made me so incredibly, wait for it, happy. It's a second chance romance between 2 characters, Harriet and Wynne. They go to it's like a cottage in Maine. Their friend group, it's got a found family trope as well, but the friend group always goes to this cottage in Maine to spend time together. They've been friends since college, and it's kind of their way of keeping up with each other. And then they find out that this is going to be the last year that they can go to this cottage, and so they're super sad about it, and they want to have this amazing vacation in Maine as their last send-off before they lose the cottage. The catch is that Harriet and Wynne have been broken up for quite some time now, and the friends within the friend group do not know it, So Harriet and Wynne also have to do a little bit of fake dating, pretend that they are still together in order to save face and keep the vacation fun and happy and lighthearted. They don't want to make it all about their relationship problems. It is, yeah, it's a little bit of a lighthearted romance, but what I really like about Emily Henry's books is that they go so much deeper than just romance. And Harriet is one of the most relatable characters that I've ever read about in a book, and I felt so seen. I think that the romance is absolutely beautiful. I'm not a super like smutty reader. I'm not really into smut, and I like those like cheesy fade to black kind of romances a lot. And I think that Harriet Wynne's has the perfect amount of spice, but also depth, and they are just like a really, really fucking cute couple, and I love them. I love all the friendships and the found family aspect. I love everything about it. Okay, it's been like 30 minutes. I just had to go do a little emergency thing for a family member, and now I forget where I was. Best sequel I've read so far this year. I actually haven't read a sequel this year, so I can't answer that question. Okay, so a new release that I haven't read yet that I want to is probably How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This came out in January, so it's new as in like it came out this year, but I really want to read it. Not because I'm necessarily like a Grady Hendrix stan, because I am very 50-50. I think I've read 2 of their works. I loved My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I hated Final Girl Support Group. So this is kind of a make or break, and we'll see how I feel. But I love a haunted house story so much. Honestly, haunted house horror stories are probably my favorite. You almost can't go wrong to me unless it's not scary enough. Like I love haunted house stories, so I feel like this could be up my alley. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year is probably A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. I really love Samantha Downing. This book comes out in July, and honestly, I don't really know anything about it. It's giving My Lovely Wife, which was Samantha Downing's first book that I read, and I think their debut. So it's like the night of their worst breakup, when one of them took things too far and someone ended up dead. They can stick together and survive anything, even the tightening net of a police investigation. That's what I know about A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. I think that they are really, really funny. They're good at doing like dark, twisted humor, and Samantha Downing is an auto-buy author for me, for sure. My biggest disappointment so far this year is really tragic. One, because it hasn't come out yet. I got the e-arc. Thank you to the publisher and to NetGalley for this arc. It comes out in August. So I'm blowed because yes, it's an arc, and it's always so fun and a privilege when I get one. And this is an author who I've read one work prior to this one and loved it, and this one I am just not liking, and that is Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. So I'm currently reading this, right? So it's not necessarily fair to say it's my biggest disappointment because I'm not done with it yet, but honestly, there's no other book right now that I've read that kind of compares to the disappointment that I'm feeling with this one. Mr. Magic is marketed as a supernatural thriller that focuses on this group of people who used to be on a children's TV show called Mr. Magic, and it was very popular. It's one of those, the book likes to talk about how Mr. Magic is one of those shows that like you can remember in the very depths of your brain, but you go to look it up online and you can't find anything and there's no footage of it, but like you know that you watched it and that it brought you joy, but it's just so like foggy. That's kind of how Mr. Magic is marketed as a book. So it follows the children that were once on the show. Now they're adults, and they're all meeting back together to go film a podcast to kind of talk about their experience on the show and what happened on like the tragic night that the show stopped completely. Unfortunately, this book is really severely lacking depth, and it needs so much more. It's less than 300 pages, and it's one of those books that is suffering from its length. Our main character, Val, we get like a couple of pages with her. I would say we get like a chapter before she jumps into this extremely dangerous, vulnerable situation that doesn't make any sense given what we know about this character. But even saying that is odd because you're only getting a chapter with this character. So it's so all over the place because we're getting no time to really know this character as a person. But we're supposed to know them, and we're supposed to care about them and understand their fears and, you know, their desires, yet they're pushing all of that aside in the next chapter to do something that feels out of character, but you're like, is it out of character? Because I don't really know you. I've literally had a chapter with you, and it just feels extremely rushed. I also really, really hate, one of my biggest pet peeves with reading is when you're telling me and not showing me. And this happens a lot in this book, again, because it is lacking, I think, the page count that it needs. We're being told so much about this relationship between Val and her father, who has recently passed away. So we're constantly being told what her relationship was like, yet we're not getting any explanation. We're not being shown anything. And I think we're supposed to care. I think we're supposed to care about their relationship and the dynamic between the two of them and how he affected her life. But we're not being shown anything. And so I just don't care. Val has memory loss when it comes to her time on Mr. Magic. She cannot remember being on the show at all. And so she's learning about the show and about the people, that the cast, as we are. Like, we're learning with her. But it's very frustrating because the other characters in the book are always like, you don't remember this? Huh? Like, you're telling me that you don't remember blah, blah, blah? And then she'll be like, no, can you tell me what happened? And they'll be like, it was just crazy. Who wants breakfast? And it's like, I'm so frustrated because she'll constantly ask questions. In fact, Val asks too many questions to where the dialogue doesn't seem authentic. I don't know a single person that asks 6 separate questions in one sentence, but this character does. And nobody answers her questions. And not only does nobody answer her questions, but then she doesn't ever challenge it. She doesn't ever like think, this is weird. Nobody will tell me what's going on. I'm praying that it gets better, but right now it's definitely the most disappointing because I was really looking forward to this. I thought that the concept sounded really good and spooky and fun, and right now it's not fun. My biggest surprise for the year was definitely You Can't Say That by Leonard S. Marcus, or at least it was edited by him. You've heard me talk about this book so much, I'm not going to get into it. Just to make it very brief, it's about a bunch of different authors whose works have been banned at some point in time, and the author sits down, or I should say the editor, sits down with the authors and discusses how their books were banned, how their lives have been impacted from this, why they think their books were banned, and just the discussion on book banning in general. It is so, so good. Super informative, and just finding out why certain books have been banned is just hilarious in the most sad way to me. And if anything, this book has further instilled my thought that, you know, we should have the freedom of expression, and in that sense, books should not be banned. And these books that are so often challenged and banned have saved lives. It's just so important. I could go on about it forever, but I really implore you to read You Can't Say That if you haven't. It's super, super enlightening. Even if you're someone who thinks like I firmly believe in book banning, which I, agree to disagree, I would say give this a shot because it's sitting down with authors who have been affected by this. And I think that you might learn a little something. So the next question is your favorite new author, new to you. And honestly, most of the books I've read this year have been from authors I've read from before. So I'm gonna have to go with Olivia Atwater, who wrote Half a Soul. It's a very cozy romance, and it's got fae in it. It's definitely giving like magical Pride and Prejudice, and I loved it. I ate it up. And so I am very excited to continue on in this series. I believe we have a bunch of different like spin-offs and little novellas and stuff within this world and the characters that we met in Half a Soul. I just thought it was absolutely like the most cozy, happy, magical vibe. It does discuss dark things. I'm not saying that this book is completely cozy, because we do talk about some pretty intense topics, which I would look up trigger warnings for. But all in all, this book gave me the cozy vibes. It was like sitting, you know, by a fireplace with the rain in the background, all cuddled up in a blanket with a hot cup of coffee. Like, that's the vibe it gave. And if you are looking for something like that, Half a Soul is it. I highly recommend it. I'm gonna skip newest fictional crush because that just always gives me the ick. Newest favorite character though has to be Harriet from Happy Place, because bitch is my twin. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I am so deeply like bum puzzled that I have a character now that I can be like, yeah, if you want to know the depths of my soul, go read Happy Place by Emily Henry, meet Harriet. Like, that's me. She's far less anxious than I am, but other than that, and she's got less stomach issues than I do, but other than that, she and I, Emily Henry literally carved open my head, took my brain, meddled with it, and then wrote a character with my brain, put the brain back in my head. Like, this character is wonderful. A book that made me cry, I'm gonna have to go with Men We Reaped again, because this is the only book that has made me cry, I believe. And it really broke my heart. There is a specific, I've already mentioned that it talks about 5 men who have died, and there is one specific death. There's actually 2 that made me cry, 2 specific deaths that really got to me, and I cried as she described their death and how they died. It was really sad. Like I said, it's a pretty dark, heavy book. To know that this is real life, that these are real people that died under these circumstances, is just like heartbreaking. Now jumping to a book that made me happy, wasting no time at all. I mean, obviously I could say Happy Place, but I guess I should pick something different. So I will go with, I'm gonna go with Daphne by Josh Malerman, which I think, you know, if you've read this, you're probably like, huh? Daphne by Josh Malerman is the campy, insane horror book that I needed. Like, I love a good horror story that's just very camp, goofy, silly, goofy, whatever, giving scream. Like, I love that kind of story. And Daphne is so over the top and insane, and I loved it. It's not for everyone because it is so crazy and because it's not necessarily rooted in reality. I don't know, like, there are arguments that could be made, you know, just like with a lot of horror films where you're like, well, technically that could not. If you put all that aside, you turn off your brain and you read Daphne, I think you will have a lot of fun with it. So it's kind of a reimagining of the slasher genre, and it's about this kind of presence called Daphne that is haunting the girls' basketball team at their local high school. Basically, like, it's a Bloody Mary situation where you're not, instead of like saying their name, you're not supposed to think about Daphne. If you think about Daphne, you're letting her in, she'll kill you. It's kind of the folklore of it all. And so Daphne starts to hunt down this girls' basketball team because the girls' basketball team basically had a sleepover. Somebody told the story of Daphne, and so like now she's here and she's taking them out one by one. And it follows one of the basketball players named Kit, who is like actively trying not to think about Daphne and watching her friends one by one be hunt down. And so she's trying to figure out how to stop this from happening. Even though that's extremely difficult when Daphne isn't so much of like a physical being as far as Kit knows, as much as it is like a concept. It's like a ghost. She has no idea how to stop it, and she's trying to figure that out, and it's just insane. Really love it. And I feel like if you know Josh Malerman as a writer and you kind of know his craft, I think you'll really enjoy it. The most beautiful book I have acquired this year. Ugh, I don't want to have to go get it. Okay, I'm not going to go get it, but I'll insert a picture. And it's this, I believe it's the Waterstones edition of Heart of a Sun Warrior, which is really kind of a bummer because I've heard that this book is not good. And Daughter of the Moon Goddess was like my second favorite book of last year. I loved it. And I have been putting off the sequel because I've heard that it's so bad. It is the most beautiful book I've acquired this year because it's got the like UK edition cover, which I do think is, I think both the US and UK editions are beautiful. But the UK one is very pretty, and it's got like the purple sprayed edges, and it's very gorgeous, and it sucks to know that it's so beautiful, but the inside, not so much. But I'm hoping to get to it this year, and I'll form my own opinion, because maybe I'll love it. You never know. What books do you need to read before the end of the year? I don't really have a set list of books that I have to read. All I know is that I am doing a readathon of the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. I just read the first book this month, so I'm going to continue with the second book in July and the third in August, so that when Threads of Power comes out in September, I'm completely caught up, I'm refreshed, and I can do Threads of Power immediately after. So I know I'm going to be rereading that. I have some arcs that I want to get to, including Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward and Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. And also my friend really wants me to read Fourth Wing because I'm sorry, this book is insanely overhyped on Instagram right now. Like, it's all over Instagram, and I need it to stop because like there's no way that a book is this good. People are acting like this book is literal gold. Like this book is no flaws, it's perfect. And I can tell you right now that I know that's not true just because I'm seeing the way it's described, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like that good of a book. And I've watched a couple of reviews of people who didn't like it. And yes, I think it's one of those books that's extremely overhyped right now. But my friend did a read because she was kind of in the same boat as I am, where she's like, I don't think that this book is going to be any good. She read it and it was not good. But she wants me to read it now so that I can talk about it with her. So yeah, I would say that that's on my, my list of books I need to get to, because I've never actually been a hate reader. I am not the kind of person that's gonna read a book knowing that I'm gonna hate it just to shit on it. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm doing it for my friend, and that's friendship. I'm gonna read Fourth Wing for her. Content creators you've been loving is the last question, and I have so many. Let me look at my subscription list really quick, just so I make sure that I do a good shout out here. My favorite booktubers that I have consistently loved have started to drop off the face of the earth and have stopped creating content, which has been really sad. So the last year or two has been me trying to find new content. I'm very, very, very picky about the booktube channels that I watch. Knowing that, Books and Lala, classic, definitely a favorite. Same with The Clockwork Reader. There is no one on booktube that seems to be so similar to me as Hannah does. I think that Hannah and we are like one brain sometimes. So I am really, really obsessed with Hannah and everything that she does, everything she creates. I'm obsessed. I also really love My Name is Marina's. I think that her channel is I think that she has the best critiques on BookTube. If I ever need to get an opinion on a book that's highly like polarizing, I'll typically go to her channel because I feel like she does the best job at articulating her thoughts and opinions on books. I love Christiane Jones. I love Alexandra Roslin. I love Elias. Yeah, that's pretty much everybody that still consistently makes content that I'm really into. So as far as bookish creators, love all of them. Highly recommend them. I'll try to remember to link them down below so you can check them out. But other than that, that is the mid-year book freakout tag. I've talked way too much, so I'm going to go ahead and stop now. Please tell me what you have been reading so far this year. You can answer the same questions. I'll link them in the description. So if you want to answer them in the comments, that would be fantastic because I really want to know what you've been up to so far this year. But I will talk to you guys later. Bye.